Cycler birthday with the package from China. So let's go. Getting some really huge nostalgia vibes with this product. So when looking at it at the first time, I've noticed on the picture, man, this thing looks like a huge Sega controller with a 6-button layout, something I've already been asking for quite a long time, and absolutely one of the best D-pads ever. Yep, I do say that often, but there are different kind of D-pads. We're going to talk about it later on. But let's chit chat about the specifications. So this is the Arc S, let's say cheaper model. It comes with the Rockchip 3566. It is actually in quad-core 64-bit Cortex A55, have a main frequency of 1.8 GHz. The GPU is a Mali G52 MP2, 1GB of LPDDR4, a 4-inch IPS display with a resolution of 640 by 480 and 3500 mAh battery that gives us around 6 hours of game time. The shell itself, already mentioned before, I'm getting some old school Sega vibe with this, and this is in a very positive way, but let's do a quick overview of the device itself. At the bottom we're finding the two SD cards. It's the same configuration with, let's say, the less like the 10 models or something like that, and of course an headphone jack out. On top we're finding two Type-C connections, an HDMI mini, and then we're having even the reset button, volume control, and the on and off switch over here. But I'm very glad that they implemented a physical volume button, because this was not the case with some of the models with some devices. And then of course the mini HDMI. There is no cable for this in the box itself, so you can use a converter from a mini HDMI or you can get yourself a cable. But let's test out this function. And in this way we can just play some old school games. And combining this with some bezels, this looks absolutely great, I can tell you that. But coming in with a weight of 256 grams, this thing has absolutely the nice sweet spot when it comes to the weight itself. So when you're looking at the button layout, this thing is absolutely perfect. So we're having the 6-button layout over here, we're even having the floating D-pad, select the start over here at the sides of the screens at the top, and we're having two front-facing speakers. Depending on the emulator, I must say that some of the emulators don't go really loud, but the overall quality of the speakers is absolutely great. So this is one of those old school classic D-pads that I have seen on some, let's say, fake Sega controllers too, and of course the original one. And what I do find is absolutely amazing, that it comes even with a very nice curve, a very nice, let's say, grip in overall, so it's very comfortable to play. But when you're getting the hang of it, I can tell you this thing is absolutely one of the best D-pads you can actually use on this. It plays amazing, it responds perfectly when it comes to fighting games. So I'm looking at the buttons and they are absolutely great and absolutely very comfortable. So first of all, when you're looking at the A, B, C buttons, so you can see there are a lot of already different, let's say, heights between them. That makes them absolutely like very comfortable. But let's get into some real nostalgia vibe with this Sega controller lookalike device. And of course the 6-button layout is something that we're going to be needing, having the authentic experience. Of course the X, A, B and Y, most of the games will just use the 3 buttons over here. But with this particular game we're going to have the option to using the Z and the Y button. But when you're looking at the device itself, this is absolutely great. This just looks amazing, but also feels, this is not the flat surface that we have seen many times before. And when you're actually going to be holding it, you can put your middle fingers underneath it and give this thing some extra comfortable, let's say, way to play. So over here we have a very interesting, but a little bit of a disappointing configuration maybe for some of you. So first of all, we're having two different buttons. Here you can see like this thing is a little bit longer, and that's great because it makes it more comfortable to hold. But also both of them are just normal membrane buttons and not the trigger buttons. Okay, so when it comes to emulation performance, Sega runs pretty good on this. Of course, depending on what kind of game you're actually going to be playing, two-dimensional games are not that demanding, of course, compared with, let's say, the 3D games. But it's absolutely just great to see where we're coming from when it comes to these devices. Oh yeah, so there was only one downside to configuration without any joysticks. Is because, yeah, we're going to need it. And I mean, particularly when you want to play in a certain comfortable way. And you can actually play some GoldenEye on this device with this button configuration. But it is not really recommended, because you're going to have like the D-pad for moving around, for example, in combination with a couple of buttons. The emulation performance is absolutely horrendous on these things. There are a couple of games that can be played, but you will see a lot of glitches going on over here. And you can see also a lot of stuttering going on. It's still playable. You can just see that I need to navigate with the buttons at the side and the D-pad. I wanted to say it's going to be very horrible. But another system I just love to check out is some PlayStation Portable. And here we will find an overall mixed performance. Take note, it's going to be an original resolution with no frame skip enabled, but performance itself is so much improved compared with all the other handsets we've checked out here on the channel. You can just see that the stutters and the dips down, so we can implement frame skip for a slightly overall better experience. But PlayStation Portable will always be one of those systems with its cheaper chips that may not have like 100% perfect overall gameplay experience. Okay, so next up, let's take a close look at the Sega Dreamcast. And you know, the naming of these characters are kind of funny. This guy is called Fokker. Okay, nevertheless, let's take a close look at some gaming. I've been playing this game quite a lot before I was even recording this, and I can tell you I really enjoyed myself some Power Stone too. This is such a cool game. I think it is one of those hidden gems for the Sega Dreamcast. You can just play them on the Dreamcast with 4 players. That's so much fun. But the overall performance of Sega Dreamcast on this device is just great. Another system that will be playing very nice on this is going to be the PlayStation 1. So one of the things I just enjoy in this is just playing these old school games, and the D-pad is just absolutely great for this. Let's check out if they have mapped everything like it should be. Yep, there we go. And also the form factor of the device itself makes it a very comfortable play. Now, this is actually one of those games that you're needing the shoulder buttons a lot for switching out between games. If you need to shoot. Okay, so next up, let's try some GBA. And I can tell you, when you're able to play some Game Boy Advance on this, it's going to be absolutely the perfect experience. Because these devices now can play all kinds of old school stuff. Think about 8-bit, 16-bit, handhelds. Without any problem, you can just play them. So that's absolutely great. They also implemented a bezel with this particular one, with the Game Boy Advance. I think it's not the prettiest one, but yeah, I'm just going to be leaving it there. But do you really need to buy an expensive device like this for some old school 16-bit? No, not really. There are so many different devices out there that can actually play the same thing. I was just switching my buttons as I'm making this video. But the question remains, like, what can you actually buy more? That is, of course, I did some separate videos about, let's say, like Game Boy look-alike devices that can just play these games without any problem, and they also look amazing with beautiful IPS panels. With this overflow of devices, there are many different devices that can actually play this. Of course, the D-pad and the way how this is configured, yeah, it works perfect for this too. It's an absolutely great addition. But when exiting the game with the emulators, here we do have a different kind of emulator, like say every single time, so we need to have a different kind of way to exit the game. Take the note that it's going to be in combination most of the time with the F button, with start or something else, but that's something you need to check out in the manual itself. And I'm very glad that they implemented a manual with the freaking package itself. So in the beginning, I already mentioned of the top buttons over here with the on off switch and the volume. I said it was a reset button, but I should have said better like it's the menu button, or yeah, it's actually resetting the game system, of course, or the game they're actually playing. By pressing this button, it will bring you to the menu, depending on what kind of emulator you're having. But in here, we're going to have the option to go back to the main menu and even making quick load, quick save. The only weird thing is with some of the emulators, we have an extra menu we need to get out of. This doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Pressing the F button or the reset button, it will give you in RetroArch different options. Over here we can change out like even more if you want to. So first of all, we can go into the options, we can implement frame skip and mess around with it if it's going to be needing with it within a certain game. Take consideration with PlayStation 1 with native resolution, it plays just fine. So in here we can even go to the settings, we can change the drivers, video, and here we can shut down like the full screen mode, Windows mode. You can mess around with it. You can remove the bezel that I've shown you before. So with RetroArch we're going to even having more options to mess around with. Now when booted up, this is the menu we're getting. It's a quite basic menu, but I do like it. So first of all, when pressing start, here we're finding all of the options that we can change out. Think about the sound, controller settings, and you can pair a Bluetooth controller if you want to. So there are a lot of options you could do with this thing. You can just actually make this just a very cool game box. But that is something we're not going to be focusing on in this video. We have an option for the streaming settings, network settings, and we have all kinds of cool things you can do with it. Game settings, here we can even change out the aspect ratio and all the other things if you want to mess around with that. The UI settings can be changed out. We're having different versions. Let's change it out to one of them, and here we can check out that we're having a very fancy one looking. So that is one of the things you need to take consideration. I'm going to put it back all the way to the first one. Looks kind of basic, but I'll just really love it. So in here we're finding the different kind of, say, applications and options. Favorites, red and RetroArch, emulators, apps, and recent list. So pressing this, you can check out all the recent games that you have played. So, but what I think is pretty damn interesting is, and also maybe kind of annoying, is that when you're looking at the emulators and RetroArch, we have two huge lists with different kind of emulators. The biggest one is the RetroArch, and over here we're finding the emulators, and here we're finding different emulators. Yeah, different emulators. The Sega Dreamcast, the Saturn, the PlayStation Portable, and then 64. But how will the emulation be? Let's check out that, and let's try a couple of these games. But when we're in the game, you can just mess around with some more settings. So first of all, when you're pressing the X button over here, we're getting into the option to launch the game, add to your favorite, and go to the advanced game option. So with this particular game or Naomi system, there's nothing much we can change out, but the game express ratio can be changed out if you want to, which you can see over here. I will going to leave it to automatic, but that's it.